And if you missed anything, if you wanted to catch anything, you can just head there. There's also a number of videos on there for fluent speakers, a few lessons in Tlingit. You can do sound practice. There's a sound practice video on there. There's a number of other things. If you wanted copies of those videos, because maybe it's hard to stream or you wanted to take it somewhere, just let me know, and I can get them to you if I need some sort of jump drive or something. Eventually, we're going to have a computer upstairs, hopefully that you can just pull this stuff off of, video, audio, all kinds of things. There's a number of other collections out there. If you go to the UAS homepage, you can scroll down, and there's a link with a whole bunch of conversations that were recorded by Alice Taft. This is a story that's about 13 minutes long. It was a wonderful moment to have him tell it. I think he was 92 or 93 at the time. He passed away late in the spring of this year. Get back to the
they are dus ja gaat als doen als je gaat te agataya slier ja hinet gaat hin is dan gaat geen als je de ja nog naast je en put je together Christian ja ja naast als dat hin als je de dus je just Zakristan. Afgezet dat dan zo. Dus je dus dat je gaat daar. Het is dit, kan je dit. Achter panaku. Achter panaku. Je kan het er niet. Dus kan het krijgen als je dat kan krijgen, dat komt dat aan. Achter panaku. Why could not say? It's a different but it's a gate. It's a trustee. Say, Annen, there is the next 100 good. Pakan and Nariana Kikwell. Gee, that's funny. Say, Papa, I am here. Yeah, I sit here. Really saw on the top then. Top saw to schoon ik cut it to top. Okay, yeah, really. Yeah, saw on the top, saw to cut it. As to go, but couldn't talk for 6 years. So the target could start is up. Har shot the hunting. Har erbjudit till Dasha att gå till Adidas Nagu. Ja, då kan ta kallt med det och sitta. Jag tycker det är säkerhetsligt. Vad är säkerhetsligt något? ونفسه يئس ونفسه شيطان ونفسه فكان نخينا كثير الشيء يعين وآت يخن قاطر قد كيش كيهش آتيهش كآتش ين آسنك ناشوية أتوا أو شكيك أو شيخك يكتاشي أشي أخنت الساعة التيهان جاتي جيس خسلي خيئت أي آغاين يخن نخي كيا واشت الشيخ خفت خندق يا واحن هرشاتي هاني خيكا واتاقن في تنشاط الجنكي اشتغل جيكن سكيته كقصي سنت جيت يخاش خود لأن سناس تكت خط هانن على خود جيكن أخو هاش كسني بدل تسكتورين بس بكتر دعاء خود جيكن يا أنت يتسا أعطيها يا أتيتت آي كوهاي خط يدخل استكدت خود جيكن 1902 هوت هاو خلوه who did it was the school, high school. أخو high خجيز 1904 أخو هاي آخر سيتي أتخانس أخو استكدت أي القاهرة بقل سيتي وأنا فيش
All right, you guys still there? Looks like we got kicked out for a second. So a couple of thoughts when we're doing something like this. We'll do this now and then, sometimes with the same thing to see. Just repetition is really good. The audio for that, I believe, is on Tlingit.info under the audio tab. Some really important things. It's like you've got the English to read, which helps. It does really help. And so we'll pick ones that have translations. But it's really important to control how much you're thinking in English. Right? Because maybe you might want to say, oh, hey, you know, and it's a real challenge because you might be thinking about the Tlingit language in English. Okay? So you might be thinking, oh, hey, I want to look up that verb later. But if you're going to do something like that, maybe take a note of it. That note's got to be really fast. Because what's going to happen is you're going to turn that Tlingit side off. And even though we're new to the language, you got to consciously think about throwing the switch so that as we're in there, you're doing your best to stay in that moment. You can always go back and watch the video later. But the other thing, too, is trailing thoughts. If there are any trailing thoughts that you start thinking about, because if you shift into another language, especially for an extended period of time, 13 minutes is a long time to move into another language, even if you have the English to read. So what can happen is you'll start thinking about other things, like, oh, you know, after class, maybe I'll stop at the post office, or, oh, wow, I wonder what's going to, you know, all kinds of crazy thoughts going to pop up, because English is like the little kid that never wants to be ignored. And I'm saying you should ignore your kids. But you have to ignore English at certain points in order to really move into the language. The other thing is, as we move into videos that we're going to watch, those of you that are online, you might have to mute your microphones just so it doesn't pop into the display. While we're in class, it doesn't matter so much, but while we're doing the video, in mind. Any reactions, reflections, thoughts on that story and that thing? Next time I'll turn it up a little louder.
I actually was reading Tlingit, and I didn't even notice it was English. I think it's like half the video.
That's awesome.
I couldn't keep up.
I
I was going so fast, but I was trying to look at every little thing in the language. And I realized there was English underneath, and I stopped.
And so that's great. Like you're winning.
It was crazy.
And sometimes it's worth it to just turn the subtitles off too, especially once you know the story. But then sometimes you might want them on too, because you're practicing looking at the letters and how they're put together and how it comes out. And one of the most important things is just the rhythm of the speaker. And it's a different rhythm because he's telling a story. He spent so much of his life telling stories, and he told us when we were done, he said, that's the first time anybody asked me to tell him in Tlingit. So it was a real challenge for him, actually. You know, I mean, he's a perfect speaker, absolutely just wonderful, amazing speaker of Tlingit. But the pacing is different too, because you're thinking of things and you're trying to really get the story right in these different parts of it. So if you want to see different pace of speakers, there's other videos, both there and on the UAS website, the ones that Alice has done. And it's great just to do that because you need to internalize that rhythm of Tlingit in the way that it actually sounds. Because, you know, we break things into little pieces, and the danger of doing that all the time is you end up with this real stuttered thing, or we do these drills. And David Katzek was in our class one time, and we're doing these drills, like, and he stood up and he says, "Stop talking like a robot," you know, because we were doing like, "How are you doing? I'm fine." And we had this structured conversation, but like, "What's up, you? What you eat? What?" Which is understandable because we're getting started, but you know. The trick too is watch how emotion is being conveyed in certain things. There's certain parts of that story where he's really conveying some important things. And how does he do that as far as his tone, the pacing of the language, body language, different things like that. Anything else?
I was trying to see if you said any of these that we learned last week.
Yeah, there were a couple of them that popped up. He was in there, and Yap was in there.
A douche.
Yeah, douche is in there. So you know, you will start to recognize things, and so we learn these little components, and then we do stuff like this because, like, hey, you know, I know that. You know, and so it's fun to do that because as we go along, you recognize more and more and more, and eventually, when you hear something without then you'll be able to take a stab at what it means and have pretty good accuracy. Everybody okay? Everybody online? Everybody okay? Okay. I'm going to turn the TV up just a tad. So we're going to do a little bit of drilling here. And on the phone and online, you're on our television in the classroom. We're trying to figure out positioning of the room. We should have a different cable at some point. I'll move to the other side of the room so that I can sort of look like I'm looking at your faces, those of you online. We're going to do some drills here, and if you ever have any questions, just shout it out, because if you're on the phone, I can't see it when you raise your hand. If you're online, I can't see it when you raise your hand, but I can hear you when you talk. So never feel like you're interrupting. Always voice yourself, because I need to know whether or not you're following along, whether or not if you have any questions. It's always good to just go right at those questions, especially if they're language related, because your mind's going to want to start putting all these different pieces together, and that's what we're going to do. So this is. Can someone look up what page this little graphic is in our handouts, the beginning Tlingit workbook?
It's on 25.
So we're on page 25 for the cheat. So we're going to go back to here, this basic question forming. So we threw a bunch of stuff around yesterday about how to ask questions in Tlingit. And you saw that wa, sa one a lot in Cyril's speech. And it was interesting because wa, sa, but then things could go in between wa and sa. That's what's really interesting to me. And then those are things that linguists are trying to figure out. James Crippen, Seth Cable, Terry Eggleston. That's the field of linguists that are working in Tlingit right now. Before that, it was Richard Dowenhauer and Jeff Lear, the two main ones who were working in Tlingit for a long, long time. And it was fun. I used to sit at lunches with some of them and watch Dick Dowenhauer and Jeff Lear just argue about like just these little sort of minute portions of Tlingit and how things really function. And there's Nora, and she's just totally tuned out. It's all internalized, right? So she's like, you guys figure it out. But she would be the one that they would go to for answers to a lot of things. And it's really fun to see how much they knew about the language. And Jeff Lear, who's probably the best Tlingit second language speaker there is, and he can speak several other languages as well. So, we've got da, sa, which means what, right? It's what. I almost said it means what, but then I said it. So da, sa on its own means what. Now we can add some little components at the end. So I could say if I'm holding on to something, everybody put your hand, everybody just grab something. Grab anything, just grab something. Focus on holding that object. It's not entirely to do with possession, but it's pretty close. And we'll say, da saya, da saya, da saya, da saya. Now let's all point at that phone on the wall. Those of you online, point at anything that's sort of more than 5 feet away from you. Da saway, da saway, da saway, da saway. And I'll tell you guys something. The other night I was cleaning out boxes for my office. I was here late, and this was 2 nights ago. Was it? Yeah. Did I tell you guys about this?
Yeah.
I saw that black bear. I was like, that's away. And I said it to myself because I'm like, what is that? So it's very commonly used. So the response would be, let's not do the phone because we'll have to say it in English. So let's say I'm pointing at, that one's kind of hard. Let's say, yeah, there we go. Everybody say, look at that thing that Hinton Questley is holding. He is holding a spoon, those of you who are online. Shush away. 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 So the second part, away, there's two components to it. There's and we. And then, some people want to negotiate how things are written. They'll write dasa as one word. I would write it as two, because the da can go into different areas. And again, where that sa comes from, it's such an interesting little particle. It's really hard for me to define. It is a body part. It's right here at the base of your neck. If you were to say aksa, everybody put your fingers right here at the base of your neck, basically right on top of that bone that's right there at the very top of your chest. And that's aksa,
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 aksa. And we saw that other phrase, which is put here as well. So it's the same one we saw here. Tlingit,
Tlingit,
einach,
einach,
sa.
sa.
Command. Say it in Tlingit. And my dumb joke last night was the exclamation point, as we talked about, when we're writing down in Tlingit, that doesn't mean we're excited, that doesn't mean we're yelling it, that means it's a command point. What I said last night is like, it's not somebody falling off a cliff. And then I said, if I was falling off a cliff, that was probably what I would say. We went past the last word. So back to here. So we're going to stick to these two spaces. Hands to your chest. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Hands out. We.
we,
Yeah.
yeah,
We.
we,
Yeah.
yeah,
We.
we.
So yeah means it's in this vicinity, you can grab it right away, or you're holding it. We means it's somewhere else. Now what's really interesting with these things is they also have to do with time. Yeah is right now. You is a long time from now, either in the past or the future. And we can be any of them. We is like the super default one, it seems like. Now this phrase, away, when it comes in front of, after a noun, go away. And I shouldn't be holding it, right? So that means that is. So I could point at something, hayakajit away, nadag away, khawati away, khahad away. And I'm telling you what all these different things are. That is khawati. That is hayakajit. That is gukha. It also has a number of special sort of uses. A lot of the Tlingit speakers that we're working with who are in their third and fourth year, we have them giving speeches, putting things together on their own, sometimes at a moment's notice. And sometimes, they're very good. They're very good. So by the second, third year, you're actually going to be able to start putting things together on your own. In the meantime, you'll be able to communicate an awful lot of things just by a lot of teasing and other things we have. But a lot of students, when they're putting it together in their mind, maybe the next thing they're going to say, especially if they're just sort of on the spot, go ahead and introduce yourself. Even something that people know, sometimes it takes a while. You're manufacturing language, which was interesting because an elder once said to me, I want to make just a little bit of our ancestors' language. And there's a really neat way that he said that, because the verb ashayech would be like if you're building something, because that's what you're doing. You're building language in your brain. But sometimes the students will go, and that's English. You don't in Tlingit. And that's just, you could go, you could do that. And that substitutes for But the thing that sounds even better is you throw this one in there. Away. And now you can take a little pause, put it together silently in your brain. You don't always need to be making noise. That can mean a number of things. It could mean focus on this part of what I'm saying. It could also mean I'm still talking, but I'm putting it together in my mind. So as you're going along, you might start talking about something, or it could say, we're sort of shifting the subject a little bit. Or we're telling a story, and we're sort of shifting the scene. We're not on the beach anymore. We're in the car. And so it's a really dynamic, powerful, short word. The part is what we call a focus particle. And so really you're just calling focus to something. There's two places where it's used a lot. You'd say, goodness, cheesh. And that means, it's just extra emphasis on that thing. The other place I hear it is when somebody gets named at a pu'ik, at a potlatch. They'll say their name. Their name was, I was naming this. Kaya Kajate, right? And then when it walks around, it's alive. It doesn't say, my name is Kaya Kajate, my name is Kaya Kajate. Because what's happening is they're saying, this is really Kaya Kajate now. That's what the comes from after. So
How did you pronounce?
What's that?
How did you pronounce potlatch?
Pu'ik.
Pu'ik.
Yep. And it's an underline K, letter U, period, E, X, apostrophe. And that means to invite people. To invite. Okay. So let's take a look at this chart, and we're going to start moving through some question and answer drills, and this is where we're going to pick Monday. So as you guys go over the weekend, your mission is going to be to look through the list of words in that beginning Tlingit workbook and memorize that first set of nouns. I think it goes up to yak, which is a muscle. And just practice those, because when we come back, we're going to practice them in a bit of a question and answer drill. We'll do them all together now, but next week is when we'll start sort of going around the room, be on the spot a little bit. But the way that beginning Tlingit is structured, we're going to set the sound practice thing aside for a little bit. We'll come back to it. But beginning Tlingit is structured so that you're learning some basic question and answer things. What is this? What is that? This is this. That is that. But you're also introducing these words in a way so that they're all fairly short. There's all the sounds exists in English for most of them. So there's nothing that's too terribly hard, and then we'll start introducing the stuff later that's a little hard for some speakers. So the format is going to be, we're going to look at a picture of something. Right, so we'll look at a picture of this. This is the first thing. It's in the same order. It's in your book. And then the process is we'll all look at that picture for a second. And if you're looking at your workbook, it starts with the one called at-dagi. And that's the thing. You're going to look at that picture for a second. And then when the text comes up, I'll say it, and you guys repeat. After we've done that 4 times, I will say das away, and you won't repeat me. You will say blank away. Right, and we're sticking with this away because it's up there on the screen. You're looking at it. It would be different if you were holding it. It would be aya, right? So this is something we're going to also get to know. Because I would say dasaya if I'm holding it. I would say dasawe if I'm pointing to it. You would say, in this example, at-dagi away, because you're going to point to it. If you were hugging it, I guess, or what I mean, holding, you're right next to the tree. At-dagi aya. And this is it's a good phrase to learn. The second noun actually gets a little weird because you could say das away, and you say tas away. And some people, it gets a little bit confusing just because the sounds start to be really similar. Especially, well. But it's very handy because as you're walking around, you could just say das away, or you could just walk around and start learning the names of things. Blank away, blank away. So we'll have time to try it once, but before we do that, I just want to emphasize, I'll make sure, I think I emailed everybody the handout for selecting your words. But if I haven't, I'll do it again. On Monday, you guys should all have 5 nouns chosen and 1 verb. that you are going to be committing to memory. We've got some, and we'll work on practicing these in class. But the end result is on the date of what would be our midterm, which we're calling a language demonstration. You'll stand up in front of the class and in front of the camera, and you'll recite 12 words from them. So as you select words to memorize, it's good to think of some sort of pattern. Whatever you want to choose is up to you. I've had students who've chosen, I want to get animals with horns, the hoofed animals that are in Tlingit country. Or I want to do household objects. Or maybe I'd like to do beadwork. So here's needle, thread, beads. So think of grouping. I have had students who just open the dictionary, maybe right before class, just any old page, and just grab things. You do that too, but I think honestly it's harder because there's not some pattern. I've also had students who thought of a story, and then they picked certain nouns that could fit in the story. So when they recited their words, they actually told the story using their Tlingit nouns. So you pick 5 nouns. You'll also pick 1 verb. You'll hand those in to me on Monday. I'll hand them back to you on Tuesday. You'll pick 1 verb. My suggestion is to stick with the verbs that are in the Edwards Dictionary of Tlingit, because they're already conjugated in very specific ways. When you look up a verb in there, so if you looked it up in English, say you looked up run, and it said he in capital letters, capital X, capital E, capital E, capital X. That means you would flip back to the Tlingit section under X and find it, and it would show you the conjugation of that verb. What you're looking at, I should probably just put this on the screen, so we're going to run out of time. So this is the Dictionary of Tlingit. So if you're looking up something, like let's just do what I was talking about. So if we look under English to Tlingit, and we look up run, so it's right here. So we'll see there's actually a bunch of different options here for running. But let's say if I want to say, oh, well, he or she is running around. And actually, that is the form that you would use. So you're going to see these capital letters, capital X, capital E, capital E, capital X. That is telling what the verb root is. And it's important because then you would go back to this other section, which is Tlingit to English. You would go to the X, and then you would scroll through. And there it is there. And so you'll see some to run towards something, to run around. It might get a little confusing, but here's the one for running towards something, and maybe that's the one we wanted. But whatever verb you end up picking, so you see the verb root here. Underneath it, you'll see 3 different ways that it's listed. This is perfective, which means the verb has already happened. Imperfective or progressive imperfective, which means the verb is happening right now. And then this is repetitive imperfective, which means it happens on a regular basis. Grab the one all the way to the left. When we memorize our verbs, we will memorize them in the perfective form with 3rd person and 3rd person. We'll get to what all that means, but it's probably the most commonly used form of the verb, because if you're going to talk about what happened when you saw the black bear, that's all perfective verbs. I saw it, it was doing this, it has already occurred. Perfective is not the same thing as past tense in Tlingit, because Tlingit looks at time and action differently. It has event-driven, it's an event-driven language. So what you're communicating is whether it has happened or whether it's happening now or whether it's already done. But some things are already done, but it's all present tense right now. Questions? Oh, good. Yeah, and And the text, you can load it onto your iPad, you put it on your computer, you put it on your smartphones, or you can have these dictionaries handy. You get them through the Sea Alaska Heritage Institute, and also under the resources tab on tlingit.info. You know, so you can have them. It's good to have them everywhere. If you carry your phone with you or your tablet or whatever, it's good to have those so you can just look things up. Because you might see something and say, oh, look how you say that. Or someone might ask, what's the name of this bird? What's the name of this other thing? All right. Ms. Cheesh, we'll see you guys on Monday. Make sure you get your 6 words ready to go. Those of you online, just take a picture of it or scan it and email it, or you can take a shot at typing it if you want to. If you can get the underlines and things on there. And I'll show you guys some techniques on typing. Ms. Cheesh, switch